Saturday morning hit like every other weekend in our modest split-level house on Maple Street. The kind of morning where you can hear Mrs. Geller next door watering her petunias and complaining loudly to anyone within earshot about the neighbor's dog. I was sprawled on our worn leather couch, nursing my second cup of coffee and half watching some mindless TV show about people flipping houses they could never afford. Danielle was in the shower, singing some pop song at the top of her lungs. After 8 years of marriage, I'd learned to tune out her morning concerts. She worked as an HR specialist at TechFlow Solutions, one of those soulless office parks outside Portland, and weekends were her time to pretend she was still 22 and carefree. Her phone sat on the coffee table where she'd left it, the pink case catching the morning light streaming through our bay window. I wasn't the type to snoop, never had been in all our years together. Trust was something I took seriously, maybe too seriously. Then the screen lit up. A text notification appeared, and I glanced over automatically. The preview showed enough to make me freeze. I really miss your body. The sender was listed as David Work. My heart hammered against my ribs as I stared at those 5 words. David Lurie. I knew him from Danielle's office Christmas parties, smooth-talking sales manager with perfectly styled hair and a red BMW he loved showing off. The kind of guy who wore cologne that cost more than my monthly grocery budget and always had a story about his latest gym conquest. I sat there for maybe 30 seconds, the shower still running, Danielle still singing, the whole world feeling like it had tilted sideways. Then I reached for her phone. I knew her passcode, had known it for years. It was our wedding anniversary. It's 06-115. She'd never bothered changing it, and I'd never had reason to use it. Until now. The phone unlocked, and I opened the message thread with David. What I found there made me want to throw up. 3 messages from that morning, sent while I'd been making coffee and reading the newspaper like any other Saturday. Last night was amazing. Can't stop thinking about you. When can we meet again? My place or yours? I really miss your body. I scrolled up, my hands shaking. The conversation went back months. Months. Flirty messages that escalated into explicit details about what they'd done together, where they'd done it, when they'd do it again, references to your husband's business trips, and while he's at work, and the bed you share with him. Our bed, our home. While I was busting my ass working maintenance for the city, fixing broken streetlights and patching potholes, my wife was bringing her lover into our house. The shower was still running. Danielle was still singing, oblivious to the fact that her entire world was about to implode. I took screenshots of everything, sending them to my own phone. Then, with a clarity that surprised me, I typed a response as her, "Come over, my husband isn't home today." I hit send before I could second-guess myself. David's response was immediate. "Seriously? Right now?" I typed back, "Yes, hurry." Then I sent our address. "Be there in 20 minutes, baby," came his reply, complete with a heart emoji that made my stomach churn. I deleted the sent messages from Danielle's phone so she wouldn't see them, then placed it back exactly where she'd left it. I sat back on the couch, outwardly calm, inwardly planning exactly how this was going to play out. 20 minutes. I had 20 minutes to decide how to handle the moment when David Lurie showed up at my front door expecting to find my wife alone and available. The shower finally turned off. Danielle's singing stopped, replaced by the sound of her moving around in the bathroom, probably doing her elaborate skincare routine that involved more products than a pharmacy. "Eli," she called out, "did you start the laundry?" "Not yet," I called back, my voice surprisingly steady. "Can you throw in that load from yesterday? I need my blue dress clean for Monday." The blue dress, the one she'd worn to her last late work meeting that I now realized had been spent in David's apartment, or maybe right here in our bedroom. "Sure thing, honey," I replied. 15 minutes had passed. David would be here soon, probably speeding in that flashy BMW, thinking he was about to have another afternoon with my wife, while her clueless husband was supposedly somewhere else. The doorbell rang. Right on schedule. "Eli!" Danielle yelled from the bathroom. "Can you get that? I'm not dressed." I didn't move. I sat there on the couch, coffee cup in hand, waiting. The doorbell rang again, more insistently this time. "Eli!" More urgency in her voice now. "Who is it?" I heard her moving around frantically in the bathroom, probably looking for something to throw on. "Why don't you check?" I called back, my voice calm and conversational. Footsteps on the stairs. She was coming down, probably wrapped in a towel, annoyed that I hadn't answered the door like a good little husband. She appeared at the top of the stairs, exactly as I'd pictured. White towel wrapped around her, hair still damp, face flushed from the shower. She looked beautiful, which somehow made this whole thing worse. "Who could that be?" she muttered, walking toward the front door. I pulled out my phone and started recording. She opened the door, and there he was. David Lurie, holding a bouquet of red roses, dressed in khakis and a polo shirt like he was heading to a country club. His confident smile faltered the moment he saw her in the towel, confusion replacing the cocky anticipation he'd probably been feeling during the drive over. "David?" Danielle's voice was barely a whisper. "What are you doing here?" David looked equally confused. "You texted me to come over. You said your husband wasn't home?" He held up his phone, showing her their message thread. The color drained from Danielle's face as the pieces clicked into place. She turned slowly to look at me, still sitting calmly on the couch, phone in hand, recording everything. "Surprise, honey," I said, my voice deadly quiet. David started backing away from the door. I should go. I should go." But Danielle grabbed his arm, panic setting in. "Wait, this isn't what it looks like." I laughed, a sound that surprised even me. "Really? Because the texts are pretty clear." I read aloud from my phone. "I miss your body. Last night was amazing. Can't stop thinking about you." Should I go on? David was trying to pull away, but Danielle was holding on to him like a lifeline, which was ironic since he was actually an anchor dragging her down. "How could you invite him here?" she demanded, her voice rising to a shriek that probably had Mrs. Geller glued to her window by now. "I didn't," I replied calmly. "You did, according to him." I gestured to David, who was still holding the roses like an idiot. That's when Danielle realized she was trapped. She couldn't deny the affair with David standing right there on our doorstep, holding flowers and looking guilty as hell. She couldn't claim the texts were fake when they were on both their phones. She couldn't explain away months of lies and betrayal with David as a living, breathing witness to her deception. By now, neighbors were starting to notice the commotion. Mrs. Geller was definitely watching from her kitchen window. The Hendersons from across the street had come out to get their mail and were taking their sweet time about it. Someone was definitely recording this with their phone. David finally managed to break free from Danielle's grip and ran to his car, leaving her standing in the doorway in nothing but a towel, calling after him, "David, wait!" But he was already gone, peeling out of our driveway like his ass was on fire, leaving tire marks on the asphalt and my wife standing half naked in front of half the neighborhood. She came back inside, slamming the door, her face red with humiliation and rage. "Turn that off," she demanded, pointing at my phone. "No," I said simply. "Evidence for the lawyer." That's when she started crying. The tears didn't move me. Maybe they should have. But after seeing those texts, after watching her grab onto her lover's arm right in front of me, I felt nothing but cold, hard clarity. "Please don't do this," Danielle sobbed, still clutching the towel around her. "We can work this out. We can go to counseling. It doesn't have to end like this." "How long?" I asked. "What? How long has this been going on?" She hesitated, which told me she was calculating how much truth she could get away with. "It's not what you think." "How? Long?" 6 months, she whispered. 6 months. Half a year of lies. Half a year of her bringing David into our home, into our bed, while I was at work or out of town on city business. Half a year of fake smiles and fake conversations and fake affection. "It started at the Christmas party," she continued, as if I'd asked for details. "We were both drunk, and it just happened. It was supposed to be a one-time thing, but you decided to turn it into a 6-month affair in our bedroom," I finished. Her face crumpled. "It wasn't like that. You're never home. You're always working or watching TV or in that garage. We don't talk anymore. We don't..." "So you decided to talk to David instead, in our bed." I picked up her phone and scrolled through more messages, reading them aloud. "Your husband's working late again. Perfect timing. He's going to be out of town Thursday through Sunday. We'll have the whole house. I love how you taste on our sheets." "Stop," she pleaded. But I kept reading, every sordid detail, every betrayal, every lie she'd told me about working late or having drinks with the girls or needing space to think. When I finished, I looked up at her. "You know what the funny thing is? I actually believed you. When you said you needed to work late, I believed you. When you said you were having a girls' night, I believed you. I trusted you completely, and you used that trust to screw another man in our bed." I stood up and walked to our landline phone. "I think David's wife should know about this, don't you?" "No!" Danielle lunged for the phone, but I was already dialing. I'd met Sarah Lurie at the same Christmas party where my wife had apparently started her affair. Nice woman. Teacher at the local elementary school. Loved talking about her garden and her rescue dogs. She deserved to know what her husband was doing. The phone rang 3 times before Sarah answered. "Hello?" "Hi, Sarah. This is Eli Carson, Danielle's husband. We met at the Tech Flow Christmas party." "Oh, hi, Eli. How are you?" I've been better. I'm calling because I think you should know that your husband has been having an affair with my wife for the past 6 months. Silence. Then, what did you say? I have text messages, photos, everything. I'm sending them to your phone right now. I quickly forwarded the screenshots to the number I'd gotten from Danielle's contacts. Within seconds, Sarah's phone was pinging with incoming messages. Oh my God, Sarah whispered as she read them. Then, louder. Oh my God! I could hear her moving around, probably looking for David. Where is he? Where is that lying piece of shit? He was just here, actually. Showed up at my house thinking my wife was alone. Brought flowers and everything. David, Sarah screamed in the background. Get down here right now. I heard footsteps, then David's voice. What's wrong, honey? What's wrong? What's wrong? Sarah's voice was getting higher and more hysterical. Eli Carson just sent me 6 months' worth of text messages between you and his wife. You've been screwing around with Danielle. Sarah, I can explain. Explain this? I heard the sound of a phone being thrown, probably at David's head. Explain how you've been sleeping with another woman in her marital bed while I've been here taking care of our house and our life. The line went quiet for a moment, then Sarah came back on. Eli, are you still there? I'm here. I am so sorry. I had no idea. If I had known, you have nothing to apologize for, Sarah. We're both victims here. What are you going to do? Divorce, immediately, and I'm keeping the house. Good. Take him for everything he's worth, too. The line went dead. Through the phone, I could hear David and Sarah screaming at each other, dishes breaking, doors slamming. Danielle was sitting on the stairs now, still in her towel, watching me with a mixture of horror and disbelief. You just destroyed 2 marriages, she said. No, I corrected. You destroyed 2 marriages. I just made sure everyone knew about it. I went upstairs and pulled 2 suitcases from our closet, then started packing her clothes. Everything went in. The blue dress she'd worn to meet David, the lingerie I'd bought her for our anniversary that she'd probably worn for him, the perfume he'd complimented in one of their text messages. Where am I supposed to go? She asked from the doorway. David's place, I suggested. Oh wait, his wife probably changed the locks by now. Maybe a hotel? Eli, please. We can work this out. I'll quit my job. I'll never see him again. We can start over. I stopped packing and looked at her. Really looked at her. The woman I'd married 8 years ago. The woman I'd trusted completely. The woman who'd been living a double life for 6 months. You know what the worst part is? I said. It's not even the intimacy. It's the lying. It's coming home to you every day and having you ask about my day and tell me about yours, knowing that you were editing out the parts where you were planning your next meetup with David. It's you cooking dinner and asking if I wanted to watch a movie, knowing that you were counting down the hours until you could text him goodnight. It's the complete and total betrayal of everything we built together. I zipped up the first suitcase. So no, Danielle, we can't work this out, because I'll never trust you again, and without trust, we have nothing. I carried both suitcases downstairs and set them by the front door. Then I went to our junk drawer and pulled out the spare house key. I'm going to Home Depot to buy new locks, I said. When I get back, I want you gone. You can come back for the rest of your stuff later, but call first. You can't just kick me out. This is my house too. Actually, I can. Check the deed. The house is in my name only because my credit was better when we bought it. You're not on the mortgage. You're not on the title. You have no legal right to be here. Her face went white. She'd forgotten about that detail, probably because she'd never thought it would matter. I'll call the police, she threatened. Go ahead. Tell them your husband kicked you out after he caught you having an affair. See how sympathetic they are. I grabbed my keys and wallet. Oh, and Danielle, I'm canceling the joint credit cards and freezing our joint accounts. You might want to call your bank and set up your own checking account. You'll need somewhere for your paycheck to go. You bastard, she spat. Maybe, but I'm not a cheater. I left her standing there in her towel, surrounded by her packed bags, with nowhere to go and no one to call except the man whose marriage she'd just helped me destroy. As I pulled out of the driveway, I could see Mrs. Geller in her front yard, pretending to tend her flower beds, but obviously waiting for more drama. She gave me a little wave, and I waved back. By tonight, the whole neighborhood would know what had happened. By Monday, it would be all over town. Danielle's reputation was about to become as damaged as our marriage, and I was just getting started. Home Depot was busy for a Saturday afternoon, but I didn't mind waiting in line. It gave me time to think, to plan my next moves. I bought new locks for the front and back doors, a security camera for the front porch, and a small safe for important documents. If Danielle thought she could come back and take anything that wasn't nailed down, she was about to learn otherwise. When I got home, her car was gone. The suitcases were gone too, which meant she'd found somewhere to go, at least temporarily. I wondered if she'd tried calling David, only to discover that he had his own marital crisis to deal with. I spent the next 2 hours installing the new locks and setting up the camera. While I worked, neighbors kept finding excuses to walk by. The Hendersons stopped to ask if everything was okay. Mrs. Geller brought me a glass of lemonade and not so subtly pumped me for information. "Trouble in paradise?" she asked, gesturing toward the lock I was installing. "You could say that," I replied. "Turns out my wife's been having an affair." Mrs. Geller's eyes lit up like Christmas morning. She lived for neighborhood drama, and I just handed her the gossip equivalent of winning the lottery. "With who?" she asked, not even pretending to be subtle. "Guy from her work, David Lurie. You might have seen him around. Drives a red BMW." "The one with the fancy car." I knew something was fishy about him. Always dressed too nice to be visiting a married woman. I finished installing the lock and tested it. "Well, he won't be visiting anymore." "Good for you, honey. That woman never deserved you anyway. Always putting on airs, acting like she was too good for the neighborhood." Mrs. Geller wasn't wrong. Danielle had always been slightly embarrassed by our modest house, our working-class neighborhood, my blue-collar job. She'd wanted us to move somewhere more upscale, somewhere that matched her corporate image. Maybe that's why she'd been attracted to David. He represented the lifestyle she thought she deserved. My phone buzzed with a text from my buddy Luke, who tended bar at the Brass Lantern downtown. "Heard through the grapevine you're having a rough day. First round's on me if you need to talk." News traveled fast in a small town. I texted back, "Might take you up on that later." Another text, this one from an unknown number. "This is Kristen from Danielle's work. She's staying with me tonight. We need to talk." Kristen Walsh, Danielle's work best friend and partner in crime. I'd never liked her. She was one of those women who thought every man was the enemy and every woman was a victim. If Danielle was staying with her, it meant she was already working on her sob story, trying to paint herself as the wronged party. I didn't respond to Kristen's text. Let them stew. Instead, I called my lawyer, Jim Morrison. Not the rock star, just a guy who'd helped me with the house purchase and my will. I left a voicemail explaining the situation and asking him to call me back Monday morning. Then I called my bank and had them freeze our joint accounts, just as I'd threatened. By evening, I was sitting on my front porch with a beer, enjoying the quiet. No Danielle chattering about her coworkers, no fake conversation about our days, no pretending everything was fine, just peace. That's when David's red BMW pulled into my driveway. He got out slowly, like he was approaching a wild animal. His face was scratched, probably courtesy of Sarah, and his polo shirt was wrinkled and stained. He looked like a man who'd spent the day getting his ass handed to him. "We need to talk," he called out. "No, we don't," I replied, not getting up from my chair. "Look, I know you're angry." "Angry?" I laughed. "David, I'm not angry. Angry is what you feel when someone cuts you off in traffic. What I feel toward you is something much more permanent." He took a few steps closer. "It wasn't supposed to happen. It just did. These things just happen sometimes." "No, David. Car accidents just happen. Thunderstorms just happen. Affairs are a choice. You chose to pursue my wife. She chose to let you. You both chose to betray your spouses for 6 months." "Sarah threw me out," he said, like I should feel sorry for him. "She won't even let me explain." "Explain what? That you were screwing another man's wife in his bed? That you were sending her love notes about how much you missed her body? What exactly would you explain?" David's face hardened. "You set us up today. You tricked us." "I gave you exactly what you asked for. You wanted to come to my house while I wasn't home. I made that possible." "By lying. By using your own words against you. I never lied about anything. I just let you walk into the truth." He was getting agitated now, his voice rising. "You destroyed my marriage." "No, David. You destroyed your marriage. I just made sure your wife found out about it." That's when he made his mistake. He stepped onto my porch, getting into my personal space, trying to intimidate me. "You think you're so smart, don't you? Well, let me tell you something." I stood up, and suddenly the dynamic changed. David was about 6 feet tall, gym fit, but soft. I was 6'2", with 8 years of boxing training and a job that kept me in real-world shape. When I rose to my full height, David took an involuntary step backward. "Let me tell you something," I said quietly. "You're on my property, uninvited, after spending 6 months sleeping with my wife. I have a legal right to defend myself if I feel threatened. Do you feel like threatening me, David?" He backed down immediately. "I just want this to end peacefully." "Then stay away from my wife, stay away from my house, and stay away from me. Simple as that." She's not your wife anymore, he said, trying to salvage some dignity. She's leaving you. For you? I asked. Because last I heard, you were homeless too. Sarah kicked you out, didn't she? So where exactly are you two lovebirds going to live? Your car? The look on his face told me I'd hit the mark. Neither of them had thought this through. They'd been so caught up in the excitement of sneaking around that they'd never planned for what would happen when they got caught. Danielle deserves better than this, David said weakly. You're right, I agreed. She deserves exactly what she's getting, and so do you. David left without another word, peeling out of my driveway for the second time that day. I sat back down and finished my beer, feeling more relaxed than I had in months. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Danielle. We need to talk. I'm coming over. I texted back, New locks. You're not welcome here. It's my house, too. Check the deed. It's not. I'm calling the police. Go ahead. Tell them you want to break into your ex-husband's house after he caught you cheating. She didn't respond after that. Around 10 p.m., Kristen's car pulled up outside. I watched from my window as Danielle got out and walked up to my front door. She knocked, then rang the doorbell, then pounded on the door. Eli, open up. We need to talk. I turned up the TV volume. I know you're in there. Your truck is in the driveway. I opened a window upstairs. Go away, Danielle. You don't live here anymore. You can't just kick me out. I can, and I did. Find somewhere else to sleep. Where am I supposed to go? That's not my problem anymore. She stood there for another 10 minutes, alternating between pleading and threats, before finally giving up and getting back in Kristen's car. As they drove away, I saw Mrs. Geller's curtains twitch. She'd probably watched the whole thing. By tomorrow, the entire neighborhood would know that Danielle had been officially banished. I went to bed in my bedroom, on sheets that I'd stripped and replaced that afternoon. For the first time in months, I slept soundly, without wondering where my wife really was or who she was really with. Because now I knew exactly where she was, homeless, friendless, and facing the consequences of her choices. And this was just day one. Sunday morning brought more drama. I woke up to find my truck keyed, a long scratch running from the front bumper to the rear tailgate. Danielle's handiwork, no doubt, probably done in the middle of the night when she thought no one would see. Joke was on her. My new security camera had caught everything. The footage was beautiful in its clarity. Danielle creeping up my driveway at 2 a.m. with a key in her hand, looking around nervously before dragging it along my truck's paint job. Her face was clearly visible in the infrared light, and the timestamp would prove exactly when it happened. I saved the video to my phone and my laptop, then called the police to file a vandalism report. Officer Martinez arrived within an hour, a young guy who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else on a Sunday morning. You want to press charges against your wife? He asked, reviewing the footage on my phone. Ex-wife, I corrected. And yes, I do. That's a $2,000 paint job she just destroyed. Martinez sighed. Look, Mr. Carson, I get that you're going through a divorce, but nothing. She doesn't live here anymore. She has no legal right to be on my property, and she committed vandalism. Would you ignore it if a stranger had done this? He took down the information and gave me a case number, though I could tell he thought I was being petty. Maybe I was, but Danielle needed to learn that actions have consequences, and that her tears and sob stories weren't going to protect her anymore. After the cop left, I drove my scratch truck to the Brass Lantern. Luke was working the day shift, and the bar was mostly empty except for a few regulars nursing hangovers and watching sports. Jesus, Eli, Luke said when he saw me. You look like hell? Feel like it too. I slid onto a bar stool and ordered a beer. Heard you already know what happened. Small town, man. Word gets around fast. Luke was a good friend. We'd known each other since high school, and he was one of the few people who'd never bought into Danielle's act. You okay? I gave him the full story, from the text message to David showing up at my door to the keyed truck that morning. Luke listened without interrupting, occasionally shaking his head or muttering under his breath. 6 months, he said when I finished. In your own bed. That's cold, man. The worst part is how stupid I was. All the signs were there. Working late, new clothes, always on her phone. I just trusted her. That's not stupid. That's being a decent human being. She's the one who screwed up, not you. We were interrupted by the sound of the front door opening. I turned to see Kristen Walsh walking in, followed by 2 other women I recognized from Danielle's office. They spotted me immediately and made a beeline for my table. We need to talk, Kristen announced, sliding into the booth across from me without being invited. No, we don't, I replied, but she ignored me. Danielle is devastated, she continued. She made a mistake, but that doesn't give you the right to destroy her life. Luke moved closer, sensing trouble. Everything okay over here? Fine, I said. These ladies were just leaving. We're not going anywhere, said one of the other women, Janet, I think her name was. What you did yesterday was cruel and vindictive. What I did was expose the truth. You humiliated her in front of the whole neighborhood, Kristen shot back. You invited her lover to your house just to embarrass her. I invited him to my house because she'd been bringing him there for 6 months. I figured it was time I met him properly. That's not the point. That's exactly the point. I stood up, and Luke moved to stand beside me. Your friend spent 6 months lying to me, cheating on me, and disrespecting our marriage. She brought another man into our bed while I was at work. She made me look like a fool to everyone who knew what was going on, and you think I was too harsh for letting her boyfriend see her in a towel? She loves you, Janet said weakly. She wants to work things out. She loves me? I laughed. She's got a funny way of showing it. Tell me, how many of you knew about the affair? The silence that followed was answer enough. All of you, I said. You all knew she was cheating on me, and none of you said a word. You helped her cover it up. You probably gave her alibis and advice and listened to her complain about what a boring husband I was. It wasn't like that, Kristen protested, but her face was red. It was exactly like that. You're not here because you care about Danielle. You're here because you're afraid. You're afraid that if I can expose her affair, I might expose your secrets too. I pulled out my phone and showed them the security footage of Danielle keying my truck. She did this at 2 a.m, criminal vandalism. I've already filed a police report. You're really going to have her arrested? Janet asked, horrified. I'm really going to let her face the consequences of her actions, something you ladies have apparently never made her do. Kristen stood up, her face twisted with anger. You're a vindictive bastard, Eli Carson. Danielle dodged a bullet when she found David. Yeah? I smiled. How's that working out for her? Last I heard, David's wife threw him out too. So now they're both homeless and unemployed. Real upgrade. Unemployed? One of the women asked. Oh, you didn't know? TechFlow has a policy against workplace relationships. When HR finds out about Danielle and David's affair, and they will find out, both of them will be fired. Especially since Danielle's in HR herself and should have known better. The 3 women exchanged worried glances. They clearly hadn't thought about the professional consequences of the affair. You wouldn't, Kristen said. I don't have to. Office gossip travels faster than wildfire. By Monday morning, everyone at TechFlow will know exactly what happened. Danielle will be lucky if they let her resign instead of firing her for cause. I finished my beer and stood up. Give Danielle a message for me. Tell her that every time she tries to hurt me, I'm going to make sure it backfires on her. She keyed my truck, so now she's facing criminal charges. She wants to play games, we'll play games, but she's not going to win. As I walked toward the door, Kristen called after me. She's staying at my place. She has nowhere else to go. Not my problem, I replied without turning around. She's your wife. No, I said, stopping at the door. She's David's problem now. Good luck with that. Outside, I sat in my scratched truck and felt a grim satisfaction. Danielle's support network was starting to crack. Her friends were realizing that helping her meant making an enemy of me, and they didn't like the odds. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Sarah Lurie. Can we meet? I think we should compare notes. I texted back, The Brass Lantern. I'll be here for another hour. If Danielle wanted to play hardball, fine. But she was about to learn that she'd picked a fight with the wrong man, and I was just getting warmed up. Sarah Lurie arrived 20 minutes later, looking like she hadn't slept in days. Her usually perfect teacher appearance was disheveled, hair in a messy ponytail, no makeup, wearing jeans and a wrinkled sweater, but her eyes were sharp with anger and determination. Thank you for meeting me, she said, sliding into the booth across from me. Luke brought her a coffee without being asked, then retreated to give us privacy. How are you holding up? I asked. Better than David, she replied with a bitter smile. I threw him out yesterday afternoon, changed the locks, packed his clothes, left everything on the front lawn. The neighbors got quite a show. Where's he staying? No idea. Not my problem anymore. She pulled out her phone and showed me a photo of men's clothing scattered across a well-manicured lawn. 15 years of marriage, and this is what it comes to. I'm sorry, Sarah. You didn't deserve this. Neither did you. She leaned forward. I've been going through David's phone, his laptop, everything. The affair was worse than we thought. She showed me printed emails, text messages, even hotel receipts. The scope of David and Danielle's relationship was staggering, not just physical, but emotional. They'd been planning a future together, talking about leaving their spouses, discussing where they'd live and what they'd do. Look at this, Sarah said, pointing to a particularly damning email. David was looking at apartments for them. He was going to leave me and move in with your wife. I read the email chain. David had been apartment hunting for weeks, looking for places that would accommodate him and his girlfriend. He'd even put down a deposit on a 2-bedroom place across town, planning to move in at the end of the month. They were going to blindside us, I said. String us along until they had everything arranged, then hit us with divorce papers and move in together. Exactly. This wasn't just an affair. It was a full-blown exit strategy. I felt my anger crystallizing into something harder and more focused. Danielle hadn't just cheated on me. She'd been planning to abandon our marriage entirely, probably taking half of everything I'd worked for in the process. What do you want to do about it? I asked. Sarah's smile was sharp as a knife. I want to destroy them both. We spent the next hour comparing information and planning our strategy. Sarah was a teacher, which meant she understood research and documentation. She'd compiled a comprehensive file on the affair, dates, times, locations, expenses. David had been using their joint credit card to pay for hotels, dinners, and gifts for Danielle. He spent $4,000 on her in 6 months, Sarah said. Jewelry, clothes, weekend getaways, all on our credit card, all while telling me we needed to budget more carefully. Danielle told me she was working late or having girls' nights. I never questioned it. We were both idiots, Sarah said, but we're not idiots anymore. She pulled out a business card. This is my lawyer, Jennifer Hayes. She specializes in high-conflict divorces. She's expecting your call. I already have a lawyer. Jim Morrison? He's fine for real estate, but this is war. You need someone who knows how to fight dirty. She was right. Jim was a nice guy, but he was used to handling simple divorces between reasonable people. Danielle had proven she wasn't reasonable, and this wasn't going to be simple. Jennifer's already working on David's case, Sarah continued. She can coordinate both divorces to maximize damage. Community property laws, adultery clauses, everything. I took the card. What about their jobs? Already handled. I called TechFlow's HR department this morning and filed a formal complaint about the workplace affair. Sent them copies of all the evidence. You didn't waste any time. Neither should you. Danielle's probably already working on her sob story, trying to control the narrative. We need to get ahead of it. As if summoned by our conversation, my phone buzzed with a text from Danielle. We need to talk. This has gone too far. I showed the message to Sarah, who laughed. Too far? She's just getting started finding out how far this can go. I texted back. Talk to my lawyer. What lawyer? I ignored the follow-up message and turned back to Sarah. What's your timeline? Jennifer's filing divorce papers tomorrow morning. Adultery, abandonment, financial infidelity, everything we can prove. She thinks I can get the house, the cars, and most of our savings. What about David? What about him? He'll be lucky if he doesn't end up paying me alimony. Sarah's expression was coldly satisfied. 15 years of marriage, and he throws it away for a 6-month fling with a married woman. The judge is going to crucify him. We were interrupted by a commotion near the bar. Kristen Walsh had returned, this time with Danielle in tow. They spotted us immediately and headed over, Danielle's face red with anger and humiliation. How could you? Danielle demanded, stopping at our table. I just got a call from HR. They're opening an investigation into my relationship with David. Gee, I wonder who could have reported that, Sarah said innocently. Danielle turned on her. This is none of your business, Sarah. None of my business? Sarah stood up, and I could see 15 years of suppressed teacher authority in her posture. Your affair with my husband is none of my business? That's between David and me. No, Danielle, it's between all 4 of us. You and David decided to blow up 2 marriages. Now you get to deal with the consequences. Kristen stepped forward. You 2 are being vindictive. Danielle made a mistake, but 6 months isn't a mistake, I said quietly. It's a lifestyle choice. Danielle's eyes filled with tears. Eli, please. I know I hurt you, but we can work this out. We don't have to destroy each other. You're right, I agreed. We don't have to destroy each other. I'm going to destroy you, and you're going to let me because you earned it. I never meant for this to happen. You meant for all of it to happen. Sarah found the apartment David was renting for you 2. You were planning to leave me anyway. You just got caught before you could do it on your terms. Danielle's face went white. She hadn't expected us to compare notes, to piece together the full scope of their plan. We weren't... Save it, Sarah interrupted. We have the lease application. David listed you as his girlfriend and put down your income information. You were planning to move in together next month. The fight went out of Danielle then. She slumped into the booth across from us, looking defeated. What do you want from me? Nothing, I said. I want you to disappear from my life completely. No contact, no drama, no attempts to work things out. Just gone. Where am I supposed to go? I don't have anywhere. Figure it out. You're a smart woman. You managed to conduct a 6-month affair without me noticing. I'm sure you can manage to find an apartment. I don't have any money. You froze our accounts. I froze my accounts. You can open your own. Kristen put her arm around Danielle. Come on, honey, let's get out of here. These people aren't worth it. As they walked away, Danielle turned back one more time. I did love you, Eli. I still do. No, I said. You loved the idea of having a backup plan. You loved having a safe, stable husband to fall back on while you played house with David. But you never loved me. If you had, you wouldn't have been able to do what you did. After they left, Sarah and I sat in silence for a moment. Think they'll give up? She asked. Not a chance. This is just the beginning. She smiled grimly. Good. I'm just getting started too. We shook hands like business partners sealing a deal, because that's what this was, a business partnership with one goal, making sure David and Danielle paid for every lie they'd told, every betrayal they'd committed, every moment of pain they'd caused, and we were very good at business. Monday morning brought the call I'd been expecting. Jennifer Hayes, Sarah's lawyer, had a voice like steel wrapped in velvet. Professional, but with an edge that suggested she'd seen every dirty trick in the book and invented a few of her own. Mr. Carson, Sarah Lurie asked me to call you. I understand you're dealing with a similar situation. My wife's been having an affair with Sarah's husband for 6 months. So I gathered. I'm filing Sarah's divorce papers this morning, and I'd like to coordinate with your case. These situations work best when both betrayed spouses present a united front. We set up a meeting for that afternoon. In the meantime, I had other business to attend to. TechFlow Solutions occupied a generic office building on the outskirts of town, the kind of place where dreams go to die behind beige cubicle walls and fluorescent lighting. I'd been there exactly twice. The Christmas party where Danielle and David had started their affair, and a company picnic the previous summer. I parked in the visitor lot and walked into the lobby, wearing my best jeans and a clean work shirt. I wasn't trying to impress anyone. I was just making sure I looked respectable when I destroyed my wife's career. The receptionist was a young woman with purple hair and multiple piercings who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. Can I help you? I'm here to see whoever's handling the investigation into Danielle Carson and David Lurie. Her eyes widened slightly. Oh, that would be Ms. Peterson in HR. Let me call her. 5 minutes later, I was sitting across from Margaret Peterson, a stern woman in her 50s who looked like she'd been dealing with workplace drama since before I was born. She had a thick file on her desk that I assumed contained all the evidence Sarah had provided. Mr. Carson, I understand this is a difficult situation for you. It's about to be a difficult situation for my wife and David Lurie. We take workplace relationships very seriously at TechFlow, especially when they involve employees in positions of authority. Mrs. Carson works in HR, which means she should have been aware of our policies regarding romantic relationships between coworkers. She was aware, she just didn't care. Ms. Peterson opened the file and showed me printed copies of text messages, emails, and hotel receipts. Mrs. Lurie provided us with extensive documentation. The evidence is quite damning. What happens now? Both employees have been suspended pending the outcome of our investigation. Given the clear violation of company policy and the fact that Mrs. Carson, as an HR employee, should have known better, I expect both terminations will be finalized by the end of the week. Terminated for cause? Yes, which means no severance, no unemployment benefits, and negative references for future employment. I felt a grim satisfaction. Danielle's corporate career was over, and everyone in her industry would know why. She'd be lucky to find work at a fast food restaurant. There's one more thing, Ms. Peterson continued. We're also reviewing their expense reports. If we find evidence that company resources were used to facilitate their relationship, we may pursue criminal charges for fraud. Company resources? Business trips, client dinners, conference rooms booked for meetings that were actually personal encounters. We're auditing everything. I left TechFlow feeling better than I had in days. Danielle's professional life was imploding, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. David's been calling all morning, begging me to drop the divorce. I told him to call your wife. They can be homeless together. Another text, this one from Luke. Your wife's at the bar, crying into a martini and telling anyone who'll listen how mean you're being. Thought you should know. I drove to the Brass Lantern and found Danielle exactly as Luke had described, sitting alone at the end of the bar, nursing a drink and looking like her world had ended. Which, to be fair, it had. She saw me come in and straightened up, wiping her eyes and trying to look composed. "Eli, I didn't expect to see you here." "It's my regular bar," I said, taking a seat 2 stools away. "You're the one who doesn't belong here." Luke brought me a beer without being asked, then retreated to the other end of the bar. "I got fired today," Danielle said quietly. "I heard." "They're saying I might face criminal charges for misusing company resources." "Probably." She turned to look at me, her eyes red from crying. "How can you be so cold? We were married for 8 years. Doesn't that mean anything to you?" "It meant everything to me. That's why what you did was so devastating." "I made a mistake." "Oh, stop calling it a mistake." I slammed my hand on the bar, loud enough to make the other patrons look over. A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk on the way home. A mistake is double booking dinner plans. What you did was a deliberate, calculated betrayal that went on for 6 months. I know. But we can get past this. People do it all the time. We can go to counseling. Danielle, listen to me very carefully. I don't want to get past this. I don't want to work on our marriage. I don't want to go to counseling or have long talks about our feelings or figure out how to rebuild trust. I want you out of my life completely and permanently. But I love you. No, you don't. You love the security I represented. You love having a fallback plan. You love the idea that no matter how badly you screwed up, I'd always be there to clean up your mess. But you don't love me, because if you did, you never could have done what you did. She started crying again, and I felt nothing. No sympathy, no regret, no urge to comfort her. She'd burned through 8 years of goodwill in 6 months of lies. "Where am I supposed to go?" she asked. "Kristen's boyfriend is tired of me sleeping on their couch. I can't afford an apartment without a job. I don't have anywhere." "What about David? I thought you two were planning to move in together." Her face crumpled. He's not handling this well. Sarah took everything. His car, his credit cards, his clothes. He's staying at some motel and can barely afford that." "So your knight in shining armor turned out to be broke and homeless. How romantic." "Don't be cruel." "Cruel," I laughed. "Danielle, I haven't even started being cruel. Cruel would be posting those text messages on social media for everyone to see. Cruel would be sending copies to your parents and your sister. Cruel would be making sure every person in your life knows exactly what kind of person you really are." Her face went white. "You wouldn't. Try me. Every time you make my life difficult, I'll make yours worse. Every time you show up somewhere I don't want to see you, I'll make sure everyone there knows your story. Every time you try to play the victim, I'll remind people who the real victim is." I finished my beer and stood up. "Find somewhere else to drink, Danielle. This is my bar now." As I walked toward the door, she called after me. "What happened to you? You used to be kind. You used to be forgiving." I stopped and turned back. "That person died the day I read those text messages. You killed him. What you're dealing with now is what's left." Outside, I sat in my truck and called Jennifer Hayes. "How did the TechFlow meeting go?" she asked. "Both of them are getting fired for cause. No severance, no unemployment, possible criminal charges." "Excellent. That strengthens our position considerably. Unemployed adulterers don't make sympathetic defendants. What's next?" "I'm filing your divorce papers tomorrow. Adultery, abandonment, intentional infliction of emotional distress. We're going for everything. The house, your retirement accounts, even spousal support." "Spousal support?" "She's going to need money to live on, and since she destroyed her own career with her affair, the court might order you to pay temporary support during the divorce proceedings. But don't worry. I have strategies to minimize that." After we hung up, I drove home to my quiet house, my new locks, my security camera footage of Danielle vandalizing my truck. Everything was falling into place exactly as I'd planned. My phone buzzed with one final text of the day from an unknown number. "You think you've won, but this isn't over. You'll pay for what you've done to us." David, probably drunk and desperate and lashing out. I saved the text as evidence of harassment and blocked the number. Let them threaten, let them rage, let them plot their revenge. I'd already won, and they were just too stupid to realize it yet. But they would. Soon enough, they would understand that when you betray someone who trusted you completely, you don't get to control what happens next. You just get to live with the consequences, and their consequences were just beginning. 3 weeks later, I was sitting in Jennifer Hayes' office, reviewing the final divorce settlement. The papers spread across her mahogany desk represented the complete destruction of my marriage and my wife's life. "She signed everything," Jennifer said, barely containing her satisfaction. "No contest, no negotiations, no demands. She just signed." The terms were brutal, but fair. I kept the house, the truck, my retirement accounts, and all personal property. Danielle got her clothes, her car, which was being repossessed since she couldn't make the payments, and exactly nothing else. What about spousal support? Waived. She can't afford a lawyer to fight it, and any judge would laugh her out of court anyway. Woman destroys her own marriage and career with an affair, then expects her ex-husband to pay her bills? Not happening. And the criminal charges? TechFlow found evidence of fraudulent expense reports totaling $8,000. The DA's office is considering charges, but they'll probably offer a plea deal. Restitution and probation instead of jail time. $8,000. That's what my marriage had been worth to Danielle. The cost of hotel rooms and dinners and gifts for her lover, all charged to her company credit card. What about David's divorce? Sarah's taking him for everything he's worth, which admittedly isn't much. He's been living in that motel for 3 weeks, and his wife cleaned out their joint accounts before he could touch them. He'll be lucky to keep his car. I signed the final papers, officially ending 8 years of marriage with a few pen strokes. It felt anticlimactic, like finishing a book I'd lost interest in chapters ago. There is one more thing, Jennifer said. Your ex-wife has been trying to contact you through my office. She wants to meet. For what? She didn't say, just that it was important and she needed to see you one last time. I considered it. Part of me was curious what Danielle could possibly have to say now that everything was over. But a larger part of me just wanted to be done with her entirely. Tell her no. We have nothing to discuss. I'll pass along the message. I left the law office and drove to the Brass Lantern, where Luke was setting up for the evening shift. The bar had become my unofficial headquarters over the past few weeks, a place where I could drink in peace and watch the local news coverage of TechFlow's workplace scandal. How'd it go? Luke asked, sliding a beer across the bar. It's over. Officially divorced as of an hour ago. How do you feel? Relieved, like I can finally stop waiting for the other shoe to drop. The front door opened, and I turned to see Sarah Lurie walking in. She looked better than she had in weeks. Her hair was styled, she was wearing makeup, and she had the confident posture of someone who just won a major victory. Celebrating? I asked as she joined me at the bar. David signed his papers this morning. I get the house, the cars, his pension, everything. He gets to keep his clothes and his student loan debt. Where's he going to live? Not my problem anymore. She ordered a glass of wine and raised it in a toast. To getting what we deserved. We clinked glasses. 2 people who'd been betrayed by their spouses and had fought back with everything they had. It felt good to win, even if the victory was hollow. Any word from Danielle? Sarah asked. She wants to meet, but I'm not interested. We said everything we needed to say weeks ago. Probably for the best. David tried calling me yesterday, something about wanting to explain everything. I hung up on him. We were interrupted by a commotion near the door. Kristen Walsh had walked in, followed by 2 men I didn't recognize. She spotted us immediately and headed over, her face flushed with anger. You 2 are proud of yourselves, aren't you? She demanded. Very, I replied calmly. Danielle's in the hospital. That got my attention. What happened? She tried to kill herself last night. Pills and alcohol. If I hadn't found her when I did. Kristen's voice broke. Sarah and I exchanged glances. This was a complication neither of us had anticipated. Is she okay? Sarah asked. She's alive, if that's what you're asking. But she's broken, completely broken. She lost her job, her marriage, her home, everything, and you 2 just kept pushing and pushing until she couldn't take it anymore. I felt a flicker of something, guilt, maybe, or regret, but it passed quickly. That's not on us, Kristen. That's on her. How can you say that? She made a mistake. For the last time, it wasn't a mistake. I stood up, my patience finally exhausted. It was 6 months of deliberate choices. She chose to have an affair. She chose to lie to me every day. She chose to bring another man into our bed. She chose to plan a future with him while pretending to love me. Every single thing that happened to her was a direct result of her own actions. She's in a psychiatric ward. And that's tragic. But it doesn't change what she did, and it doesn't make me responsible for the consequences of her choices. One of the men with Kristen stepped forward. Tall, broad-shouldered, probably her boyfriend. You need to back off, man. She's been through enough. Luke moved closer, and I could see him calculating distances and angles. But I held up a hand to stop him. She's been through enough? I laughed. What about what I've been through? What about Sarah? What about the 8 years I spent loving and trusting a woman who was planning to abandon me for another man? That's different. No, it's not different. It's exactly the same. The only difference is that Danielle couldn't handle the consequences of her actions, while Sarah and I could. I pulled out my wallet and left money on the bar for my drinks. Tell Danielle I hope she gets the help she needs, but also tell her that her problems aren't my problems anymore. I'm done being responsible for her emotional well-being. As I walked toward the door, Kristen called after me. She still loves you, you know. Even after everything, she still loves you. I stopped and turned back. No, she doesn't. She loves the idea of me, the safety, the security, the unconditional forgiveness, but she doesn't love me, because if she did, she never could have done what she did. People make mistakes. Some mistakes are unforgivable, I said quietly, and some consequences are permanent. Danielle made her choices, and now she gets to live with them, just like I have to live with mine. Outside, Sarah caught up with me in the parking lot. You okay? She asked. Yeah. You? I keep thinking I should feel guilty, but I don't. David made his bed, literally, and now he gets to lie in it. Think they'll keep trying to make us feel bad? Probably. People like that never take responsibility for their own actions. It's always someone else's fault. We stood there for a moment, two people who'd been through hell and come out the other side stronger. Not unscathed, but stronger. What now? Sarah asked. Now we move on, find someone who knows how to be faithful, build something better than what we had. Think we'll ever trust anyone again? I considered the question. Maybe, but it'll be different. We'll be different. We know what betrayal looks like now, what lies sound like. We won't be as easy to fool. Sarah smiled, the first genuine smile I'd seen from her in weeks. That's not necessarily a bad thing. No, I agreed. It's not. I drove home to my quiet house, my new locks, my life without lies. Danielle was in a hospital somewhere, dealing with the wreckage of the choices she'd made. David was in a motel room, probably drinking cheap whiskey and wondering how his life had fallen apart so quickly. And I was free. Free from the constant anxiety of wondering where my wife really was. Free from the nagging suspicion that something wasn't right. Free from the exhausting effort of trying to save a marriage that had been dead for 6 months without my knowledge. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. She almost died because of you. I hope you can live with that. I deleted the message without responding. Danielle's friends and enablers would probably keep trying to make me feel guilty for months, maybe years. They'd tell me I was cruel, vindictive, unforgiving. They were right. I was all of those things now. But I was also honest, and faithful, and free, and that was enough. I poured myself a drink and sat on my front porch, watching the sun set over my neighborhood. Mrs. Geller was watering her flowers, probably hoping for more drama to gossip about. The Hendersons were grilling burgers in their backyard, their kids playing in the sprinkler. Normal people living normal lives, without affairs or lies or betrayals. Maybe someday I'd have that again. Maybe someday I'd find someone who understood that love meant more than just words, that commitment meant something, that trust was precious and fragile and not to be thrown away for 6 months of excitement with someone else's spouse. But for now, I was content to sit alone, in my own house, on my own terms, free from the woman who'd promised to love me until death do us part, and had instead chosen to love someone else while I wasn't looking. The doorbell rang one last time, but I didn't get up to answer it. I'd answered enough doors, heard enough lies, given enough second chances. Whoever it was could find someone else to disappoint. I was done being anyone's backup plan.